Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and cockles presented by Bolin Media, Chef. I am Ross Bolin here with Barrett Dudley, and today, Chef, we are finally discussing a show that people have been begging us to cover since its first season dropped last year. I am talking, of course, about The Bear.
Yes, Chef. Yes, Chef. The Bear.
Behind.
I need hands. I need hands.
Corner.
Yeah. Sorry, I was distracted because I just got an email notification that's not about the bear. No, it's from ID Notify that it says my email address has been found on the dark web. So I've got that going for me.
Hey, that's huge.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's probably going to send me in a spiral to bankruptcy where the only thing that I can do is turn my brother's beef sandwich shop into a fine dining establishment.
That's what get Michelin stars on that thing.
That's right. And it all starts with your email address being located on the dark web. But here we are, chefs, to discuss The Bear. I'm very excited.
I'm stoked.
This. Yeah.
Before we dive into The Bear, a reminder that later this week on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, we will be taking hotline calls from listeners cooking up further discussion of The Bear. Last week on Patreon, Barrett and I did an hour podcast just about Oppenheimer. So if you wanted to hear Barrett and I discuss the film Oppenheimer, head to patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, and subscribe. When you subscribe on Patreon to support our show, you will immediately gain access to our entire backlog of Patreon-exclusive content, including Barrett and I's companion podcast for every single episode of HBO's classic crime drama The Sopranos, friendly to both first-timers and rewatchers, as well as bonus coverage for House of the Dragon Season 1, The White Lotus Season 2, The Last of Us Season 1, Succession's final season, and Silo Season 1, plus more. So much piping hot exclusive content there for you to devour on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles for just $5 a month. So get in there today and support OCC. And again, this week on Patreon, we will be taking hotline calls from listeners cooking up further discussion of The Bear, which, Barrett, I have something to call out first before we dive into the happenings of Season 1 and 2.
Is it that you found out who built the silo?
I haven't found out who built the silo. Okay, I'm still working on that. But The Bear has obviously done really well within the television zeitgeist, right? Gotten a lot of buzz, Emmy nominations as well.
It's a buzz boy.
But
Tony Busby.
I'm not sure any show has ever suffered as much as a result of the binge model. And I think there's a counter argument to this as well. But from my perspective, one of the reasons, like, I just finished season 2. I watched the season 2 finale last night.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons it took me so long to get into this show, my wife and I knocked out season 1 and 2 over the past month, really a few weeks. It's not a difficult watch, right, from a time commitment perspective, but the fact that it only gets 2 weeks, 3 weeks at best worth of buzz online and with talks at dinner parties and whatnot, before it kind of fades out and people move on to something else, is extremely problematic for this show, just in terms of reaching its maximum potential audience, which you and I have kind of talked about on and off for years now and focused on in a variety of different ways, the difference between the classic old one episode a week drop versus the binge model that is implemented by the likes of Hulu and Netflix, etc. And this one, though, I feel like just because it ends up being a show that, like, I finish an episode of The Bear, right? And I'm basically just mentally exhausted. I'm usually like, okay, because the pacing is just so fast that I can't really enjoy what I just watched until like a day has passed.
Yeah.
And then it grows on me every episode.
Right. This is a show that definitely likes to traffic in intensity and discomfort. It likes to make you feel uncomfortable. It likes to be loud. It likes to be fast. It likes to be, really, really quickly paced.
And it does that because it's paying homage to the feeling of working in a kitchen like that.
Yeah, to the chaos of both working in a restaurant and I think to the chaos of the inner lives of these characters, right?
For sure.
And so just for context, if this show was on a weekly drop, we would have been buzzing and building. And this week, we would be talking about forks.
Right.
This would be week 7 if the show had dropped on June 22nd and then done a weekly drop. So, like, we would have been crescendoing right now instead of relying on my man Jaw out there, Jeremy Allen White, just going on shirtless runs in the valley, like getting posted on Just Jared to keep the buzz going. You know, respect to my man for doing that, for popping top and showing the bod. But like, he shouldn't have to be doing that just to keep his name out there. Like, we should be just entering the biggest moments of these shows. Last week we would have covered Fishes. Thank you. And this week we would have done Forks, and like, people would be going insane in the dog days of summer where there's literally nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
So
now the counter to that is that if it was spread out one episode a week, that it would kind of always feel like it was the same thing. That's the counter I've seen online. I don't really feel that way about this show. I mean, enough happens every episode.
How do you even make that argument when in this season alone you have like the Copenhagen episode, and then you have the Fishes episode, and then you have Forks episode, and then you have the restaurant opening episode, and then early in the season you had the Sydney dining out in Chicago episode.
Yep.
Like, these are super individualized episodes. Like, I think you can't tell me that.
Maybe season 1 would have suffered a little bit as a result of people being like, well, it's just kind of, we're back in the beef every week.
Yeah,
but
I think a better, if you want to make an argument, it's that this show knows that it's being dropped as a binge model, and so the seasons are very like, they are statements as a whole rather than, kind episodically. But
season 2 got more into the episodic statements.
Yes, I do think season 2 had a lot to say per episode as well as a whole. And I just, either way, like, however you cook up the season, I just think you have more to gain by kind of meeting it out and letting the buzz and the hype build.
I think their argument at Hulu is probably based on the time per episode, that they're usually, with the exception of a couple episodes, they're 30 minutes, right? But my main argument is that it's so quickly paced and so anxiety-inducing in by nature, right? Even if it's not dealing with super heavy subject matter in particular episodes, you still leave kind of like your brain is tired, because you're really having to focus to make sure you get every line, catch everything that's happening, pick up on everything they're wanting you to pick up on.
Yeah.
And I need time to process after each one of these. Like, I have not binged this show. I do a maximum of 2 of them in one sitting.
Right.
And then I tell my wife, that's it, no more. And she's like, oh, you coward. Because I can't handle it, dude. Like, I don't want to be so anxious before bed that I'm having dreams about, like, setting a restaurant on fire. Like, that's not what I need in my life. So I think for that reason, it would be better without the binge drop. And
just a dream where Joel McHale is just telling you are the worst podcaster. You suck at this.
Just hazing my balls off.
Terrible at this.
Yeah, I don't need that, man. So I'm really hoping that Hulu will consider for season 3, like, potentially changing it up. I don't think it will happen. But they're killing themselves here. They're shooting themselves in the foot. This show should be getting as much buzz as the likes of some of HBO's greatest hits. I mean, it really should in a lot of ways. And one of the things that the Bear does so well, it presents you with these incredibly chaotic, intense, and emotional situations, and then it somehow makes it all feel good and relatable, right? To where once I've had that day to really process what I've watched, I end up thinking about it a lot, relating to it a lot, and getting excited to go back. And that's where the weekly 1 episode a week model really helps you flourish, because you're talking about it because you can't wait to watch the next one, and you want to know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you're anticipating the next episode. And that just creates so much more for people to talk about that I feel like is being lost here because it's coming out all at once. Now, question for you. Was the first season also dropped all at once?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so both seasons. Full binge.
And so it's one of the curious like industry questions. So for example, Andor, one of our favorite shows last year, was being released on Disney Plus week by week.
Right.
And it wasn't drawing quite as many eyes as they wanted it to. So at some point, I can't remember if they only did a few episodes or if they did the whole season, but they aired it on ABC in like a primetime slot when they didn't have anything else going on.
Okay.
So, and it did Disney, ABC, we're all under the same umbrella. So similarly, and Hulu, and FX, all, as it happens, under the Disney umbrella as well.
Yeah.
But the FX on Hulu shows, Dave, What We Do in the Shadows, for example, they go week by week. I guess What We Do in the Shadows is just an FX show, but Dave is like an FX on Hulu.
I have so much confusion around the Hulu FX relationship.
Yeah, and so those drop one by one. But like you wonder if and I'm sure there's like contractual things that say what can be done and can't be done. But like if Hulu wanted even more eyes on the Bear, could they put it on FX, right? Like and go week by week, and then like kind of re-engineer it or reverse engineer it into being a weekly drop like for season 3. I don't know. It seems like most of the time, once these shows have the way that they do it, that's the way they do it.
Yeah, they stick with it.
Like
they don't change it up.
They don't change it up. They've had success like this, and that's a big win in and of itself. So it's like they're probably too risk averse to change it.
Yeah, it's just this is probably the best example of a show in terms of the whole binge model versus old school that you and I have argued for years. Where I'm like,
yeah, I mean,
this is brutal.
The two that stand out to me are this and Stranger Things on Netflix.
Yeah,
that would just like absolutely crush the pop culture chatter if they would go week by week.
Oh, the memes.
Yeah,
we'd get so many more memes, and instead we're left to kind of pick up the pieces today.
Yeah,
as I've just finished season 2. Barrett, not everybody can be a world-class chef like Carmi. As you know, I am utterly and completely worthless in the kitchen. That's why I rely on today's sponsor, Factor, to keep myself fueled up and ready to rock with wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track. Too busy with your end-of-summer goals to cook, but want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, skip the trip to the grocery store, skip the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back outside and soak up the warmer weather. Or let's be real, sometimes you need something good to eat while you enjoy your favorite shows from the couch. Want to cut back on takeout? Get Factor instead. Not only is Factor cheaper than takeout, but meals are ready faster than restaurant delivery in just 2 minutes. No more waiting an hour and a half for the delivery guy who ends up canceling after deciding to eat your food in their car. Factor has been fueling my wife and I over the last 6 months with a newborn at home since I don't know how to cook. And I've tried a lot of meal kits over the years. Factor is the most delicious by far. Truly, shockingly amazing. I love the smoothies as well. They're delicious. I usually have one for breakfast when I'm running out the door to work. So if you're living life on the fly like I am, I could not more highly recommend Factor. It's time to sign up for Factor with our special offer just for members of the Clam Fam. Head to factormeals.com/OCC50 and use code OCC50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code OCC50 at factormeals.com/OCC50 to get 50% off your first box. All right, let's jump into season 1 of The Bear, right? Which obviously, one of the cool things about this show is there's not like some long build up in the first episode to get you into the plot.
Yep.
You're just dropped right in, introduced to Jeremy Allen White's character Carmi Berzatto, known as the Bear, who has come back home from New York where he was a world-renowned chef to work in the family sandwich shop he has inherited from his late brother Michael, who committed suicide. So you're kind of like picking up little bits and pieces here and there, like, wait, what's happening here? Like, why is this dude yelling chef at everybody and nobody seems to know why he's yelling chef at everybody? One lady's calling him Jeff. Pretty sure his name is not Jeff. Took me like 3 episodes before I was like, oh, she just calls him Jeff.
Yeah.
Because it rhymes with chef and she's making fun of him. His name's still Carmi. So that took me a minute.
You were just like, who is Jeff?
Yeah, I was thrown for a loop.
It's Joel
there.
McHale's character.
Yeah. But Carmi is trying to transform the sandwich shop, right? Utilizing what he learned, becoming this hot young chef. Like, I think the hottest young chef in the country. He won like the James Beard Award.
Yeah, he's a real phenom. He's worked at, there are multiple allusions to him having worked at like the best restaurants in the world.
At least a couple few, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think even in, I can't remember if it's in season 1 or season 2, but they, at some point I believe they even name drop, there is a little blurb about how he has worked at Noma in Copenhagen.
Okay.
And then there is also a reference made to 11 Madison Park, which is the widely considered for the last decade the best restaurant in the U.S., and Noma is considered largely the best restaurant in the world. So he has worked at literally the top establishments.
It's interesting that movie, The Menu, came out between seasons 1 and 2 of The Bear, just because it's like so focused on, a similar subject in some ways. Yeah.
Taken from a completely different approach.
Yeah, totally different angle.
One of the cool things about The Bear is that, and there's been a lot written about this too, but like it loves food. It loves the food industry. It loves the service industry. It loves restaurants. And so there's a lot of like, the big tracking one-shotter episode that was probably the most talked about from season 1, where like they decide to do takeout or whatever, and like the machine goes crazy, and they like get like 1 million orders at one time.
Online ordering destroys everything,
and he goes crazy, right? Like he loses it.
Yeah.
And people are like, that should have come with a trigger warning. Like this is the type of thing that's unacceptable in restaurants. And so there's a real balancing act that they're doing here, where they're kind of like, in a way, they're glorifying working in a kitchen a little bit, but they're also kind of like being realistic about it.
Yeah, they're acknowledging the downside a lot.
So they show the intensity and the kind of the downsides of it, while also clearly being in on restaurants as a whole.
Right.
So that's I only worked one summer at a restaurant. I'm just a minor service industry veteran, but like that's definitely it's a balancing act that they do, and I think they do it well.
Well, it's also, having never worked in a restaurant myself, but knowing people who have, it's very much like it's a different type of work culture.
Yeah.
Which you really have to buy into, and it becomes cultish, right?
Yeah,
a little bit. Where
family.
Those are the people you go out with after. A lot of people in the restaurant industry throw down. Like they party hard, like they work hard, play hard. Like that's very much a part of it. And it can also be a little bit gritty at times, right? Like I think they did a good job throwing in season 2's finale that random scene where like they catch the new guy smoking meth. You're like, wait, what is happening right now? You know what I mean? Like you get it
helps him chop really well though.
It does. He's very fast. He's very fast as a result of that ice.
Shouts to Alex Moffat of Saturday Night Live fame.
Yeah,
that's that actor.
But a lot of addicts work in kitchens. And recovering addicts work in kitchens, which is just like it brings this whole different type of flavor to the work environment.
Yeah, it seems to attract, like the nature of the business with its repetition and its demands every single time you're there.
Yeah.
In the same exact way, like seems to like coincide with addictive personalities.
Yeah.
And so one of the other cool things that people have pointed out is like, this kind of this art form of plating and being a fine dining chef like this. It's like almost no other art do you only get to consume one time, and then you have to go make the piece of art again.
Yeah.
Every single night you have to do it.
That's one of the cool things about it.
And that's a really, really cool thing about it. But that drives that kind of insane need to be perfect and perform every single night that you're there.
Yeah.
So
perfectionists and people with addictive personalities, that's right up our alley.
Yeah.
Like that, as a guy who has a very addictive personality, like even just watching it, I'm like, yes, it's like feeding me. But it's also the teamwork element of it. That's one of the things I have never fully appreciated about restaurants that this show has kind of given to me. Is it's almost like a baseball team. Like everybody has to buy in, be on the same page, be willing to love each other and work together and support each other and pick up the pieces when somebody else drops them, right? Like there's this whole teamwork element to it that creates that family vibe that you're talking about. And you can't have anybody be like off. Everybody has to be on. Yeah. Everybody has to be focused and firing. And it's just hectic, right? And as a restaurant lover who has never worked in one, when you're sitting out there at your table, like waiting on your food, ordering, chit-chatting, getting some wine, whatever, you never think about the insanity of what's going on in the back. The only thing that's ever really made me think about it from an entertainment industry perspective was the movie Waiting, which is mostly about how, like, if you screw with your servers, they'll put their nuts on your food. And I was like, okay, well, I won't do that. But this gives you, like, here's what it's like back there, right? Not every restaurant, obviously, but, like, here's what it's like back there sometimes. Here's how chaotic it can be. Here's the kind of personalities that really thrive in this industry. And that was another cool part of it as well. But then, of course, there's the inner stories of each character that we start to get, which, when Carmy goes in with the goal of transforming the sandwich shop, taking everything he learned in New York and putting it in here, he's met with a lot of resistance. People are like, don't screw with our system. We've got a good thing going here. But they don't, right? They don't. They just feel like they do because this is what they're used to. So he doesn't really get any momentum.
People hate change, man.
They do.
They really do.
I don't like change. Until Sydney Adamu shows up, who's played by Ayo Edebiri, and that's when he's able to kind of get some steam, right? Like, she's a huge piece of why this thing ends up working, which he does acknowledge fully by the end of season 2, or at least in moments. And they get their whole, they get that symbol going where one of them flies off the handle. It's usually him. Yeah. And then they rub their chests in a circular motion with a closed fist.
That seems like still like a powder keg to me.
I was like, did I miss something? Did they have a conversation where they discussed this?
They did.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Maybe I did literally miss something. It happened so fast.
No, he literally tells her about a restaurant that he worked in where the two, like the head and the Sioux, or the head and the CDC, would get at each other's throats. So they had this signal that they worked out.
Now I'm remembering.
To rub their chests, and it was basically meant that we can drop it. It's fine. I'm sorry. You're sorry. We got to get through this night.
Which is just a cool tool, I would say, in any relationship, especially if you're a super high-strung person, right? Mm-hmm. I am definitely high-strung. It's another way this show is super relatable to me. Watching Carmy operate, I'm like, fuck, there's a lot of me in there. And not in a good way necessarily.
But yours is the McConaughey from Wolf of Wall Street, who just thump the chest and then start doing like a hooting and hollering thing.
Yeah, and bird calls.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sydney comes in and basically becomes Carmy's number 2, right? And that's when things start to heat up. But there's a lot of things that go wrong in season 1, obviously. Like, the health inspector shows up and notes that they've got all these violations. Carmy discovers that his late brother Michael borrowed $300,000 from their loan shark uncle, Jimmy.
Yes,
who's not actually their uncle. They're doing a lot of this whole
have you gathered that the people that are called cousins and uncles are not actually cousins and uncles?
Yes, yeah, which is also a cultural specific thing, right? That's I feel like it happens more when you don't have close-knit family. You kind of replace them with the friends that are constantly surrounding you, right?
Yeah. My guess, based on the cultures that they are portraying, is that it's also a very Chicago and a very Italian thing.
Yeah.
To just kind of be if somebody's close, they're a cousin, they're an uncle, they're an aunt. They're they are family.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the show as well, is there's a big focus on immigrants, right? It's not like everybody has an immigrant culture to them in the show, and which gives you that whole melting pot feel that America really represents, right? So, or that represents America. The $300K, you've got Jimmy Cicero offering to buy the restaurant from Carmy so that he can sell it, and that be the way that they basically clean up their debt and let Carmy get back to New York and doing the prestigious restaurant work he was doing, but he refuses. And Carm I'm not going to call him Carm because that's like Carm from The Sopranos. Carmy,
yeah,
spirals kind of throughout the season. You kind of see him coming a little bit undone.
Unglued,
as things continue to be hectic and not go the way he wants them to. And he ends up starting to go to Al-Anon meetings, which I was already familiar with just because I went to some court-ordered AA meetings when I was in high school and college, and then I went to some by choice as an adult. And my mom used to do...
These are the same as... Are these Alcoholics Anonymous or something different?
So Al-Anon is basically Alcoholics Anonymous for family and friends that are affected by alcoholics.
Got it.
So if you went to AA meetings, maybe your mom would go to Al-Anon meetings to try to better understand what you were going through, be more supportive, but also to deal with the negatives that come from raising or being in love with or being married to or dating somebody that's going through that, right? And the negatives that come as a result. Which is another piece of the show that I love so much. There's a lot of realness, right? It's not afraid to be very real and raw in terms of like what humans go through, how we all struggle, how we strive to be better, and how difficult it can be to get your job done when you're going through some serious shit.
Yeah.
Which more than a couple characters on this show deal with. And what else? Richie, we find out, cousin Richie is has in the past sold blow out the back of the restaurant to get them through the COVID times. That was a hilarious like bombshell they just dropped in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second they did it, I was like, this is gonna play somehow. And by the end of the episode, Carmi's like, I need you to do one more Coke deal. Just one more. You always got to do one more, Barrett, before you can get out.
One last time. One
you know
last
what I mean?
heist, one last deal. Yeah.
What's that? Carlito's Way.
Yeah.
You ever seen that with Pacino?
For the family.
He gets out of prison, but he's got to do one more.
Yeah.
Just one more deal so he can get out. I loved that. And that was, the gist of season 1, the climax obviously is when Carm finds the money that Michael left, which I was so like in the moment I was like, okay, well he found the money. Now he can give it to Uncle Jimmy.
Yeah.
And they can be free of the debt from the loan shark guy
Right.
who kind of seems like he's an organized crime figure and might be dangerous.
Meh.
But he's like, no, this all goes into the restaurant. We're going to turn our sandwich shop into a fine dining establishment, which a lot of jokes made online about this. Like if you just showed up to your favorite sandwich place and they were like, sorry, we now are reservation only and serve $36
Yeah.
plates of,
Right.
2 bites.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Small plates.
Yeah, small plates.
Yeah. So obviously it's been about a year since I watched and got through season 1. So I'll just let me just go off dome.
We get it. You're an OG and I'm a newbie.
And hit you with some fond memories that I have of season 1.
Okay.
Them accidentally, Cuz and Carmi accidentally dosing a children's birthday party with Xanax.
Another moment where I was like, what? Like they show the kids all passed out on each other. You see the empty bottle and then Uncle Jimmy comes out and he like tells them, hey, we accidentally drugged your kid and all the kids.
Uh-huh.
And they're all passed out on Xanax,
Yeah.
literally on top of each other in the yard. And Uncle Jimmy's like, I kind of dig it.
Yeah, right. It's cool. Yeah, cool.
Give me a moment of peace and quiet. And I was like, these people are not normal. I would have been so concerned I like killed one of the kids or something. But
yeah.
that was a great moment. Yeah.
Let's see. We've got our guy Elboy. I think that's his name in real life. What's his name in the show? He's the pastry chef. He's finding his way as a pastry chef.
Marcus,
thank you. And then obviously there is in season 1, we'll get to a bunch of big cameos in season 2.
Yeah.
Big one in season 1. Did you know that John Bernthal was going to show up as Michael?
Had no clue. I've said a lot about Bernthal over the last few years, especially we covered We Own This City on HBO a little bit, or we talked about it a little bit whenever that dropped during 2021, I think.
Yeah. Might have been last year.
This dude is one of the best doing this right now. Like, he's one of the best actors currently acting. I really, really love him. I had no clue that he was going to pop up as Michael. And it even took me a few minutes during that initial flashback episode where you meet him in season 1 to piece together like, oh, that's Michael. That's the guy that's gone. My brain was not firing on all cylinders. I didn't just jump right there.
Yeah.
But I was stoked about that. That was huge.
Yeah, a really, really cool performance. And just like it's fun to see him show up. And that little flashback scene is like one of the highlights in the entire first season, I thought. Any pushback, any nitpicks from season 1?
Not really, man. I mean, it does a good job of giving you these little like cliffhangers, but not too over the top with it. Not like Silo, where you're just like, okay, well now I have to start the next episode if it's available. One of the things that struck me as nice about The Bear is that it's also very much like an ode to Chicago. Mm-hmm. You mentioned how it's also a love story about food. There are moments, especially in season 1, where it feels like a cooking show because of the shots they give you, not because of the content. But they'll focus on the food, give you close-ups, let you see the chopping, let you see the plating. And as somebody who doesn't know how to do any of that, it's still a cool thing that you're able to appreciate. And I mean, like, look, for a lazy piece of shit who doesn't know how to cook, I'm always appreciative of getting a good meal, but I don't always know how much hard work goes into putting it together, right? So it kind of shined a light on that.
Yeah. And as somebody that has been, an amateur, like hobbyist type of chef for, I would say maybe like 7 years now, maybe 7 or 8 years. The chopping, the rate of the chopping of the vegetables still blows my mind.
Because you're so slow by comparison?
Because I'm so slow by comparison. I've been doing it for years, and like, it's it's partially tools,
you're not smoking enough meth.
I'm not smoking enough meth. That's not numero uno. But then also you need a dangerously sharp knife to cut that fast, and you need a really good cutting board to cut that fast.
Yeah.
Neither, and I've got subpar tools in both of those departments, but predominantly the meth, and then but yeah, like that is just quite a skill that you got to develop back there when you have to yes chef everybody. So I didn't really when we've talked about the bear over the last year, I didn't really get to go in depth on any of the reasons why I had minor pushback. And it's a pretty common refrain from me, but I bumped on 2 characters. I didn't like Richie. I didn't like Cousin.
Okay.
And the truth is, I didn't really like him until Forks, which I think was the part of the point of Forks.
Yeah, that's intentional, for sure.
And then I wasn't sure how I felt about Sydney. I didn't know if I was with her overall vibe. And I'm not sure if it's like I felt like she was miscast, or I just didn't like what she was like giving me all of the time.
Okay.
I think I started to narrow in on a little bit of what was prompting that reaction from me in season 2. And I think by identifying it, I've now gotten past it. Plus, I think there were some of her strongest scenes in the back half of season 2 with her dad and with Carmi under the table. But her voice sounds so cartoonish to me. Like, it sounds like it should be on like a kid's show.
Okay.
And finally I looked it up, and she literally is a voice on Big Mouth, a show that I watch.
Wow.
And so she does the voices of one of the little, preteen characters. And like in the back of my mind, my brain was just like connecting those 2 things. And like I couldn't get away from the fact that her voice like just reads and sounds to me like a cartoon character.
It is a little kiddish, like cutesy, right?
Yeah. Like there's like a little like like sing-songiness to it.
Yeah, a little bit.
And the pitch of it just like kind of, makes her sound like she's 16 instead of 27 or whatever.
Yeah.
But
it's funny that you bumped on Cousin though, because I do feel like he's got a little bit of like Jesse Pinkman in him.
Yeah.
And you hate Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah. So I started coming around on Cuz a little bit more, but we'll save that for some season 2 discussion.
I felt like a lot of what they were doing with season 1 was queuing you up to be curious about characters,
right?
So that you'd be like, why is this dude like this? Why is this girl like this? Like, and then in my little storytelling brain, I was like, well, it's one of those shows where they're gonna give you little bits and pieces about each person, like Tina, right? You're like, wow, Tina's kind of a bitch. Why is she always being like that to Sydney? Why can't she be in a better mood? And then you get little bits and pieces of Tina where you start to understand her better and whatnot. So I kind of had a feel for that initially. I really didn't. There wasn't much for me to complain about in season 1. I did come out of it a little bit confused with the hype that had been thrown at the show. Like I said over the last few weeks in here, off and on, I didn't think it was the best thing I'd ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I still don't think it's the best thing I've ever seen. But this show does, in some way, shape, or form, plant a seed inside of you, and then that kind of grows.
Yeah, definitely.
And as I look back on the episodes, I can't wait to go watch them again. That's another piece of it where I know it's good. And it's like heartwarming to even sit here and talk about like the things that happened in season 1, where I feel a lot of positivity towards the Bears season 1. It's just that it was not as groundbreaking to me as it had been made out to be. And that definitely is something that shifted when I got into season 2. Yep. I felt like they really caught stride. But season 1, best 2 performances to me were obviously Jeremy Allen White as Carmi, and then I loved Sydney's character. Like I thought that brought the difference in personalities between those 2 characters alone gave me a lot to chew on. So Ayo Edebiri did a great job to me as well.
Did you ever watch Shameless?
Yeah.
Okay.
First 3 or 4 seasons, I think, before they did 10.
Yeah.
Eventually, I was like, all right, I get it. The dad's drunk.
Classic Showtime.
Yeah. Also Chicago.
Yes. My roommate used to watch the show a lot, and so I think I maybe ended up watching the first couple seasons, but then I would just like kind of ride along with him for whatever he was watching.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Do you think that this performance by Jeremy Allen White, is it just like lip to you, but kind of turned, or is it more of a revelation than that?
I think it's more of a revelation than that,
Okay.
and particularly when they get into season 2 and you start to see the mental health side of him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like as I alluded to earlier, as a dude who's pretty high strung, has a lot of anxiety, has some demons, has dealt with some shit, he does a really good job of playing that character, where it's like you just sort of, it builds, and then you have these moments of where it breaks. And I think he does a really good job representing what it's like to have some shit, some trauma on your plate that you're dealing with, and you're also trying to figure yourself out and try to like decide what to do with your life and make difficult choices on a day-to-day basis. And obviously season 2 gets into the relationship side of things, where he's trying to have a personal life outside of this whole restaurant deal. But no, I mean, look, there's definitely some lip in there, like you see it.
Yeah.
But I think there's more than enough differentiation for me to be totally cool with what they're doing. The thing about Chicago is my favorite city in the United States that I've ever visited, right? Like it's my favorite
Great city.
United States city outside of my hometown of Houston, Texas, our hometown of Houston, Texas. And that's because Chicago and Houston have a lot of fucking things in common. And not in a landscape scenario, like from a people perspective. The whole melting pot thing gives you this vibe that no other cities provide for me outside of Houston and Chicago that I have been to. I haven't been to that many cities, in fairness, but I've been to the big 5 or whatever. I love Chicago, and I should be specific, in the summer. Not going in the winter. I don't want anything to do with that whole windy, freezy mess. I don't do cold weather, but getting that like Chicago vibe every episode in season 1 was one of my favorite things about season 1 too. Yeah. So I think we covered everything big from there is one episode in particular that gave me some pause. They have the bachelor party they host at the Beef to knock their tab with Uncle Jimmy down. Like they keep doing things to knock $1,000 off, $2,000 off here or there.
Yeah.
Have a bachelor party. It gets a little out of control. Richie breaks up a fight and ends up almost killing a guy.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, this is the episode that gave me some really bad juju around Uncle Jimmy. Because he's presented as this character that he's a nice guy. He just does illegal, shady shit, right? And you're kind of like, every scene you have with him, you do feel like there's some warmth in there.
Yeah.
I watched The Sopranos too many times to not be wary of where this is going, dude. Like, it just seemed like when they gave us that bachelor party scene to show us, like, he hangs out with a bunch of, it's like the mafia. Like, this is organized crime. Like, these are all guys that are like Uncle Jimmy.
Right.
And if you don't think some really bad shit is coming down the pipeline at season 3 or 4 or whatever, related to Uncle Jimmy, the organized crime stuff, the loan sharking, the illegality of it all, you're living in a more positive world than I. I'm really worried about this. Like, I really, really am. I hope I'm wrong.
My personal read is, well, let's save it. Let me save it for season 2 talk, because I want to talk about Oliver Platt in general.
Fair enough. Let's head towards season 2. Today's episode is also brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs, making the most comfortable and versatile shorts, pants, and bathing suits in the entire world. I've been wearing them for several years now. Bird Dogs cannot be beaten. I wear them to sleep. I wear them to do yard work, to work out, to go swimming, to do everything. They fit great, they feel great, and they look great. They are just great shorts. I would argue the greatest. I've got the Art Fart Knockers, Duffy the Vampire Slayers, Uncle Bucks, Teddy Rubskins. They've all got funny names if you haven't picked up on that. I also have the Forest Pumps, Marco Pool Boys, Zero Dark 30s, and Tightwads. I have a whole drawer in my dresser that is filled entirely with like 20 pairs of Bird Dogs.
That's a lot of dogs.
It is. If you want to look like money while you're working in the yard or swimming at the pool this summer, Bird Dogs are the move, and their pants are great for the golf course, the office, or going out to dinner or hitting the bars. You're going to look sharp, but you'll be way more comfortable than anybody realizes, and now they've got great-looking polo shirts that are just as comfortable as the shorts. Click on the link in the description below to go to birddogs.com/dragon and enter code DRAGON at checkout, and they will throw in a free Bird Dogs tech hat with every order, like the one I'm holding in my hand and showing you if you're watching on YouTube.
I just got mine. It's a very nice hat.
It's a beautiful hat.
Very nice hat.
It's beautiful. And it's free when you go to birddogs.com/dragon and use code DRAGON at checkout. That's birddogs.com, code DRAGON at checkout to get that free hat with your order. All right, so season 2 focuses, like, first of all, it was a surprise to me. I was like, okay, so season 1's closing. They're like, we're going to turn into a serious restaurant, The Bear. And I was like, wow, you're really abandoning all that neighborhood love that you've got going with the beef.
Yeah.
You figure season 2 is going to be The Bear, the new restaurant. You're watching it operate or whatever. It's the whole season focuses on the renovations.
Yeah.
So
getting ready to open The Bear.
Yeah. So the climax is the friends and family night.
Yes.
We don't even get to really see much of that because it's so focused on what's going on in the kitchen, right?
Right.
You don't see a lot of reaction to the food, although you do get enough little bits and pieces to see people loved it. It was great. It was phenomenal. But yeah, that was a surprise for me that season 2 was almost entirely focused on like the preparation of this new space, turning it into something that it wasn't before.
Yeah, the show loves a pressure cooker, and so they were not going to give up the opportunity to deal with a incredibly tight timeline and things like renovations and inspections and all sorts of tests.
Walls falling down.
Yeah, and mold. It's too rich, man. It's too good.
Yeah. No, it definitely loves a press. It gets off on being withholding, this show.
Okay. I loved season 2. I thought it elevated. I thought it or at the very least continued the level of excellence that season 1 had started, So I was it's always impressive when a show does that in its sophomore season, I think, because that's where I feel like usually there's like a tendency to
fall back,
have a little bit of a dip.
White Lotus season 2 vibes, right? When it that elevated from season 1, and you and I were very, very impressed.
I did want to quickly touch on the pressure cooker of it all, though, because sometimes I think this show uses some mechanisms that I feel like are crutches or kind of cheat codes to like make you feel something. Like, you can't just put a bunch of banging noises or an alarm in the background of every scene that you want to be intense. You can't just have people devolve into screaming matches every time you want me to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I mean,
that's just two quick nitpicks that I just like. I love the show. There were episodes, some of my favorite episodes of television of the year were in this season. But like, I'm just throwing that out as like a potential warning, like nitpick type thing that sometimes I feel like this show kind of dials in a cheat code every once in a while to make me feel something.
So I felt that way really strongly the first half of season 1.
Okay.
I was like, oh my God, do they have, like, it's the device they're using, the devices they're choosing to use to escalate the anxiety in my mind are wearing on me a little bit. And I'm like, by the end of season 1, I kind of felt like, okay, this is also just the way it is in a kitchen. Like, it's always noisy. Yep. People are often yelling at each other.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's really high-strung, intense personalities clashing.
And that's a very good rebuttal, and why like it's a nitpick and not something that I'm actually like bumping on or throwing up a huge red flag about or saying I don't like. It's just sometimes it just takes me out of it because I'm like, oh, they're doing the thing again.
Oh no, I'm completely with you. Even in season 2, there were some moments where I was like, oh, okay, so they're gonna do 2 minutes of the noise and the yelling here. Yeah. And that's when I would like get out my phone and look at Instagram for a second, even though I don't recommend doing that with this show at all because you do miss things because it happens very, very quickly. But I mean, it ended up kind of working for me longer term.
Yeah.
Whereas it was grinding my gears quite a bit in the first season, the first several episodes, as I was getting a feel for it. And now I've just come to accept that when I watch The Bear, there are going to be alarms going off in the background as two people scream at each other until they get to a point where they need to rub their chest with a closed fist in a circle.
Well, and I'll argue against my own case here because another thing that they do really nicely with the Forks episode, which I just alluded to this, it's my favorite episode of television of the entire year. It was executed flawlessly, pulled at your heartstrings, gives you a newfound perspective on a character that is a little bit grating at times. Obviously features Love Story by Taylor's version by Taylor Swift, which is phenomenal. All that to say, that Forks episode shows you what a kitchen can be like,
where it's more peaceful,
when
quiet.
All of the things that Carmy wants to execute are being executed at an A+ level,
the highest level,
the highest level. That's when there is a level of order and calmness, and it's still loud and there's still a lot happening, but it is not constantly the sky is not constantly falling. There's not a million things happening. People are not breaking down into screaming matches.
Right.
There's not alarms going off or a freezer getting, the handle broken off of it, etc. So like it even kind of like uses that episode to kind of like throw your mind forward a little bit to
Here's
see
what could
like
come,
here's what it could be.
You're right.
So
it's like a goals episode, right?
Yeah,
Where you're like,
yeah.
oh shit. Let's just do Forks. We can go back to Fishes.
Let's talk.
No,
Forks.
look. This 2-episode stretch though, Fishes into Forks, is what made me go, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I get all the hype. I get what everybody is so in love with. It built towards this 2-episode stretch that really, really took the show to another level for me, where I was just like, God damn, that was 2 fucking crazy, phenomenal episodes of TV in a row. Forks, the one where Cousin goes off to learn the ropes and become a real boy.
Yeah.
And
you ready to stage, Ross? You want us to go stage at a restaurant in Austin?
I don't think I'm gonna stage, but watching him go get his shit together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just Look, not very often do we get reminders that people can change.
Yeah. Yeah.
People can change.
Yes.
Cousin changed.
They can grow.
They can wear suits.
They can wear suits. I wear suits now.
Put on a suit. Be a fucking adult. Take care of your shit. Be a man.
Clean your apartment up a little bit before you leave. Don't
dude.
come back to a mess.
Right. It was the most uplifting episode of the show that has occurred so far.
Yes.
And the moment where he's in the car jamming Love Story was an all-time TV moment.
Yeah.
It's just so perfect because it's not really like something that I don't feel like has been shown to us before, right? Like this machismo dude who you would never in a million years guess this guy jams Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Well, they kind of set it up a little bit in like the second episode of the season, where he tells his daughter after he's dropping
he's
her
trying
off
to get
at
Taylor
his mom's
Swift
house.
tickets.
Well, he's trying to get the Taylor Swift tickets, but he has that line to his daughter where he's like, "I love you, and also I love Taylor Swift. Daddy just needed a break."
Yeah.
He's heard this song before.
And honestly, that's exactly how I feel about Taylor Swift. And right now, Daddy needs a break because ever since we watched that episode, my wife played Love Story in the kitchen the next day, and my stepdaughter, it's playing in my house all the time now is my point. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's a great song. I love. And don't get me wrong, I've also been driving around by myself and played Love Story several times since I watched the episode, and like caught myself.
How could you not?
I do not know.
You got to give yourself the Richie moment.
It's just the best. It's a great fucking song and a great scene and an all-around really, really well-done episode. That dude who plays Richie, whose name is currently slipping my mind,
Evan Moss-Bachrach,
is awesome.
Yeah.
I really, really like him. I like what the combination of him and Carmi bring to the table for this show, and the vibes and the performance it was really well done.
Yes, fun to see him get a W,
It was just life lessons in this show left and right too, right? Where it's like sometimes you're going to have to clean a fuckload of forks before you get what you want.
Yeah.
To get better, you're going to have to practice. You're going to have to be at the bottom of the totem pole before you can work your way up to the next level. And like, you're going to have some humility, right? Humble yourself.
Yeah.
Do things that you think are below you because they're not. And then only then, once you've gained that appreciation, can you move up to the next stage or whatever. And that's what you watch him do in a singular, I think it's 40 minutes of TV. Incredible shit, especially because you really, really, really needed Forks after Fishes.
You needed Forks after Fishes, and you needed Forks to watch the rest of the season as well, I would say.
That's totally fair, yeah. Things go downhill a little bit.
Yeah. Energy-wise and kind of like emotion-wise, it's certainly like the high point, I would say.
Yeah.
Leaving Forks. My other note about Forks, I can put down several, but the one I don't want to miss is that there's obviously a lot of cameos this season.
Yeah.
Olivia
Colman.
Fishes is chock full of them, but the Olivia Colman one is the best. It is so subtle, and she is God tier right now.
Yeah, she really is.
And like, I did not have to stretch for a single second to like buy that she was a chef.
Yeah. She's so good, dude.
Like she's just sitting there peeling those mushrooms, talking in her quiet British accent. And I'm just like, this is the best chef in Chicago. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. And I love the little setup there where she kind of tails off and doesn't get to tell him what was at the end of the notebook and in every one of her dad's notes, because you know what the answer is going to be, because you've been looking at the sign all damn episode. Every second counts.
Every second counts, Barrett.
And it was just like the dagger in the heart of this episode, like as if we needed to, as if we needed the Taylor Swift sing along at the very end.
Yeah.
Like I was already crying at the every second counts part. So, just a phenomenally done episode. Also great moments where people are kind of like, it's expository, but like those moments where the people in the restaurant are telling him why it matters are either when
that was a huge scene.
Where
the guy takes him outside.
Well, so that guy, the takes him outside scene is hugely important. And then later when they're kind of like, they've come to the, where cousin has seen the light a little bit and he's just talking to him about why he chose this, right?
Yeah.
Like that's also really important. So it was just an awesome
transformative.
Episode.
Yeah, indeed, in many ways. That was an incredible one. Out of the two Fishes and Forks, Fishes is still my favorite. And I think
wow.
It's something about being in a like watching a family situation unfold.
I merely adopted the chaos. You were born in it.
I guess, yeah. But it was like it made me feel better about my own life. You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, thank God I've never been in a family sitch quite this bad where literally it's about to come to blows where the mom is like, and the other thing is I have met all of these people before in my life. Every single one of them, from the like drug and drink addled mom to like, I've met people that fit into the mold of every single character on the screen. And that's one of the things that makes it so cool. But yeah, the cameos, were a little bit like over the top in Fishes, where I was just like, Jesus Christ, John Mulaney. How many people can they pack into this thing?
So yeah, and I definitely heard some pushback on it, because it's like suddenly, you get Bernthal outside and then it's just like boom, 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 boom. It's like Sarah Paulson, Bob Odenkirk, John Mulaney, Jamie Lee Curtis. And you're like, what
show.
The hell? Gillian Jacobs from Community is Richie's as Tiff.
Oh
yeah. So it's just like one after the other, and it kind of like takes you out of it a little bit.
But it was also just tight.
But it's also, it was very cool. And I just, hand up, I am a sucker for this shit.
Yeah.
I like celebrity culture. I love it when there's cameos on SNL and all that bullshit. So this was just right up my alley. I was like, and Mulaney was awesome, by the way. He crushes this.
He was. They were all awesome. That's the part about it. Like, so at first I'm like, all right, this is flagging in my brain that I might complain about this if it doesn't work out.
And then it works out.
Every character is so good that you're like, all right, well, shit, they did it. And that's the challenge if you're going to bring in that many cameos. Like, you better make it work.
I mean, Odenkirk and Bernthal at the end there with with the fork.
Throw the fucking fork. Throw the fucking. I was about to have a panic attack at that point. I was just like, this is too real, man. I can't handle it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jamie Lee Curtis as the Mama Berzado was. I think you have to hand that episode's performance to her as the best this show has provided so far, just because that's a really difficult place to put yourself.
Yeah.
As like she's a broken woman whose life has gone so awry from what she imagined that she cannot pull it back together. She is permanently apart, right? And you get that in the finale when she shows up to Friends and Family Night, but she can't even make herself go inside. And then that dude drags it out of her, essentially like, why? Like, why? And I kept, in that scene where she's outside, and what's his name? The guy that's out there talking. That Pete is like, basically stays with her and has this conversation. In my head, I was like, man, I would have bailed at that line. I would have gone back inside and left her ass out there by herself. I would have bailed at that line. I would have bailed at that line. And it gave me so much respect for Pete, because I was like, when you get into the situation with somebody who's really hurting and doing something drastic, you kind of have to be willing to stay with them, ask questions, try your damnedest to keep them there with you and understand what they're going through. And that's what he did. And that's when she gives you that explanation that makes sense and rings true. She was like, I just want them to have this without me ruining it. Like this thing that they built, they deserve to enjoy it without me coming in and mucking it up the way I muck everything up. Yeah. And that was like a very real moment, a very, very heartbreaking and sad moment, but also extremely real. And Jamie Lee Curtis, that was a little bit I think it was a little underwhelming for some people that she popped back up in the finale only
I liked it. I
only to
loved it.
duck out.
Yeah.
Subverted my expectations, thought that was cool, and it also gave you like more life lesson stuff.
And it puts a bow on the Fishes episode a little bit. Like
Definitely.
it rounds out that kind of like insane performance in Fishes a little bit.
Yeah.
You get a little bit. It's still you still are seeing like this very troubled
Unhinged lady, yeah.
mom, but it gives you a little bit more like depth to the kind of, you know, just the craziness of it all, a little bit more nuance as to why she's like that at the family dinners, why she
Right.
kind of feels the need to push and pull everybody in that manner. Because she is in Fishes, it's an unhinged performance.
Oh,
I mean,
God,
it's,
yeah.
and it's the one that I think, you know, fork throwing notwithstanding, it's like the one that like kind of throws you into the discomfort. That just kind of makes your skin crawl a little bit.
And it makes you understand why Carmi is the way he is, right? Why he gravitated toward what he's gravitated toward, and why he's so good at it, and
but also why he can't accept love in his life at this given moment.
Definitely,
You know.
yeah.
So it all like yes, the individual episodes just really like mesh together in this season to tell you everything that you're supposed to know about what is happening with these characters.
Yeah, and you get this a lot more background and backstory on the Berzato family and what the sort of, it's like, again, this is another show that's doing some things with generational trauma to talk about how things move through the generations of a family, and you see where sort of one of the origins of it is in the form of Jamie Lee Curtis's cameo, which she just absolutely crushed. And now, I can't remember, she got nominated for that, right? Shirley?
The nominations for Emmys for this season were season 1 of The Bear.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So we won't see that until next year.
While we're on Fishes, you were talking about Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy. So I'll come back to that now. I love Oliver Platt. I think he was kind of low key, kind of like you're saying, kind of mob adjacent, kind of shady character in season 1. He pops up more frequently in season 2, and I think he's awesome. Like, he is just crushing that role where you do get this vibe of like, okay, this guy would definitely know who to call to break my legs.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to go in the direction that you do. I think that there's too much. Now that they've basically set it up that all he has to do is like, all they have to do is like fail on the loan, and he's just going to take the whole thing and sell it off for parts. I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of like, I can't see them going with like a potentially like mob adjacent storyline here.
The show,
I don't think it fits within the rest of the narrative.
the show scares me in that it gives you these dark, difficult to deal with emotional scenes.
Yeah.
And then it lifts you up with other ones. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of heartbreak down the line, even in the finale for season 2, which, look, a lot of episodes of this show end, and my wife goes, "Wait, that was it? It ended right there?" And I'm like, "That was it. That was it." And there's a reason that was it, is because they know exactly what they're doing, and they're teeing you up. And I'm so worried about where this goes longer term. I don't think it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows the way some people think it is, and that's my main. I keep thinking, like, what is this dude's deal, Uncle Jimmy? I'm like, what the hell? There's moments where I'm like, this guy is cool as shit, really warm and friendly person, and there's other moments where I'm like, oh, he would also burn this place down and kill everyone in it to get his money back. Maybe. I don't know what to make of him, and I think that's where they want me to be. So
it definitely likes to leave you in the middle like that.
Yeah.
And I think I think Sydney's kind of where she ends up at the end of season 2 is like a perfect example of that, where she gets the respect from her dad, right? He tells her what everybody wants to hear, basically, which is your parents like say that they're proud of you, and hey, this thing that you're doing is for real. This is the thing.
Yeah.
Basically what she's been begging for the entire time. And at the same time, him saying that is giving her the realization that this is the thing, and that this every single night now, her having to throw it by the dumpster and go perform this song and dance and run this kitchen.
Yeah.
That's every night now.
Yeah.
So it is the thing.
So and she that's found the thing. Now you got to do the thing.
Now you got to do the thing, and it's like you think that would be a high moment for her, but it's really kind of a middle one because of everything else that that it entails. So it's like that I thought that was a really nice like frame of reaching the highs, but kind of leaving you in that kind of gray area where you're like, okay, do I feel good about this?
Dude, and I think that's just another moment of extreme realness from the show where when there's something you want so badly and you work so hard for it and then you get it, it's almost never the way you thought it would be. It's almost always like, oh shit, I got here and I was wrong about the way this would feel or the way it would look or what the expectations are now or the new pressure that I found or a combination of all those things. And they did such a good job of showing that for sure. To get through all the big, my favorite episodes and whatnot. Sydney trying all the different foods at the different restaurants, which you mentioned earlier.
Yes,
that was
fun episode.
Awesome. Loved that. Marcus going across the pond to learn how to make dessert. Another one.
Oh yes, we gotta just real quick. Will Poulter, God damn you. Okay, you know I've got a fiance out here. I don't need you showing up on screen like that.
Yeah, for a moment I thought he was the dude from also from the other show that Jeremy Allen White was in. What was the show that we were talking about earlier? Shameless. Okay. He looks a little bit like one of the Shameless kids, but he's not. Though.
No, he is the person that currently right now holds the belt for most insane Hollywood glow up of all time.
Okay, yeah.
Because he's this nerdy dweeb and we're the Millers.
That's the same guy. That's crazy.
And now is like this like super hot, chef.
He's a heartthrob.
He's a heartthrob.
Yeah.
Stop that.
Yeah.
No, but he was really good. He was really, really good.
That was a cool episode. Marcus asking Sydney out, sort of like the way he phrased it, I was like, I don't think he's doing romance here. I think
No.
I think he's doing friend. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh, okay, this is actually getting awkward in here.
Yeah.
Look, obviously they do a lot in season 2 with Claire, played by Molly Gordon, as Carmi's love interest. This is another place I saw a lot of complaining online, and frankly, I didn't love the plot line. Here's what I mean. It wasn't my favorite. I understand why it needed to exist. I understand what they're doing here. They're exploring whether or not you could be the best in the world at something and also have time for a personal life, and especially in this realm of fine dining.
So I didn't think that she got enough screen time, personally. Because I like
for you to buy in.
No. I really liked what they did with her. Okay. I wish we had seen a little bit more of her to really kind of hammer home because I bought them. What I didn't totally buy was the heartbreak at the end for both of them.
When he's stuck in the fridge and he accidentally breaks up with her, basically?
Yes. And then they give us, they kind of like, almost in hindsight, it's like they give us the phone call where she says that she loves him.
Yeah.
But it's like, I needed a little bit more of that throughout the season for that to have been as impactful as possible. But I kind of made a connection here while we're talking through season 1 and season 2, because you brought up the Al-Anon scenes that I think we get a couple of in season 1.
Yeah.
And we really only get one in season 2. It's when he's talking about how he doesn't know how to like provide enjoyment and fun and entertainment in his life nor the lives of others.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
And then we don't get any more of the Al-Anon stuff, which was a really nice device to like get inside his mind. And I think instead what we switch to, that's like replaced by the love interest and the love story, because it's doing kind of like the inverse of what the Al-Anon scenes are doing, where we're like, he's talking through things and working through things and identifying where his shortcomings are.
Right.
And then the relationship is like him trying to put that into real life and again, finding where the shortcomings are.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can acknowledge these things. You can say, this is what I'm not good at. This is why I can't accept love. This is why, I need to be better at this, yada, yada. Saying it is not the same as being able to do it.
Right.
And that's what he finds, right? Is that because of the trauma, because of the family, because of everything that he's been through, like he cannot have this relationship while also trying to pull off the restaurant. And really then it's like a question of like, okay, well, is the restaurant a crutch? Is that an excuse? Are you just really not ready for a relationship, point blank, period? Or is it like, what it also made me think of a lot is this is a Roy McIlroy situation, where you can't have, what you need is like somebody that is there literally to only serve your career.
Right.
Right. There can't be an equal partnership type of relationship. like he had with Caroline Wozniacki. He needs somebody that is ready to just ride on that golf life.
Yeah, sure.
For him to fully succeed.
Can't believe Rory McIlroy came into this, but yeah.
And then I think he won like one more major and then hasn't won since.
So
did it work out for him? Who's to say?
Who's to say? Who's to say? No, I mean, in one regard, you're right. Carmi, look, he has a lot of personal issues. He's got a lot of shit that he needs to work through on the personal side of his life. But I thought the other big statement they were making, and you get this with the conversation between Carmi and Uncle Jimmy, where Uncle Jimmy tells him, like, do you want this?
Yeah.
Do you want this to work? Then you need to go all in. It needs to be your entire life, and you can think about and do nothing else. That's what you're up against. That's how difficult this industry is to make a restaurant successful. And they really harp on this in season 2.
Yeah.
Restaurants are closing left and right. A bunch of them didn't survive COVID. The one that Sydney goes and tests out like some food at, that one's fucking gone by the end of the season. And I thought more than, yes, there's the personal side of it too. But more than anything, it was showing you like you kind of have to be a psycho to achieve greatness in your career. You have to make massive sacrifices when it comes to family, friends, personal relationships, and personal time. And that's why, the jump I always make is going to be to sports, #sports. Michael Jordan, total fucking lunatic. Kobe Bryant, until he retired, lunatic. Psychopath. Like, you have to be a fucking killer. You have to have that mentality that Logan Roy tries to say that Ken doesn't have. You have to be a killer. You've got to have this killer instinct that pushes you beyond where regular, normal people can go. And Carmi has that. He's just dividing his focus, which also gets brought up multiple times between Carmi and Sydney when he's like, you deserve my full focus. You were right. You're all in on this. You're not off like dating and trying to woo some girl and like, skipping out on different shit you're supposed to be doing here while I am. He apologizes to her. And so to me, the whole scene in the walk-in when he's locked in there and he's like using the door as a therapist. Tina used to be on the other side and God knows where she went when that other chick when Claire walked up. But he is basically admitting like, I can't have both right now.
Yep.
And I think that's okay. It sucks when you found somebody special and you want more than anything in the world to make that work with that person, but it's impossible right now. Now, that being said, I feel like a couple of conversations could probably fix this thing up. Like, I'm not burying them at all. He just needs to be able to be like, look, this is opening night, literally, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be days in my career where I don't have any time or space for you. That's the conversation, right? You've got to have realistic expectations for each other, and unless they can establish those into season 3, then they won't survive. But I think because they queued us up with like, this is a childhood friend, he's known his whole fucking life, they're clearly in love with each other, and they have to find a way to make it work. She also has a chaotic job. They should be able to understand each other in this regard. But yeah, I didn't bite all the way on like oh no, Carmi and Claire. I was just like, yeah, whatever, they'll figure it out.
Well, it's also a problem because no industrial fridge ever doesn't have a handle on the inside.
Yeah, that would make no sense at all.
It was fine. I didn't.
Would you when it first happened?
I didn't even realize it while it was happening. But then afterwards, I was like,
couldn't he just get out from the inside?
Sec.
Yeah.
Seems like a safety hazard.
I'm going to assume the loophole is that when the front one broke off or the outside handle broke off, it somehow damaged it to where it couldn't be used.
That's fair. Yeah.
When they
totally
first,
fine. I'm willing to suspend disbelief.
When he first got locked in there, I was like, oh, he's going to die. Every year you hear a story about somebody dying in one of these walk-ins. Now that's my wife was like, it's a fridge, you idiot.
It's a fridge,
and I was
not
like,
a freezer.
Shit, okay, so he can't freeze to death. But when they were just like, everybody was just like, we got to do it without him, basically. That was a ridiculous.
You're like, they're just gonna let him die.
I was like, what? He's gonna freeze to death in there. But that was also just a crazy moment because you realize like, oh, they don't have time to get him out right now.
Right.
They're gonna have to do it without him, right? And I think this will be the thing that sets Carmi free. It may not be immediate, but it depends where we pick up with season 3. But the fact that they did it without him should free him some of the feeling that like I have to do it all. And I have to be there for it all.
Unless it goes the other way and he is now having the Richie crisis where he doesn't actually know what he's there for.
Yeah, what his purpose is.
What his purpose there is, if they don't actually need him to run.
Well, but none of it would have he needs a sports psychologist for his kitchen so that he can sit there and do therapy sessions with them. But that's really the answer to this show, is that all these people need therapy badly.
That is correct.
Very bad.
Definitely one of the overarching themes and messages.
Anything else that we missed? Oh, I think Carm and Sydney's sparks, right? Because a lot of people, like, they have some chemistry. Now, there's a couple ways to look at it. One is that they are simply friends and colleagues who respect each other a lot, and they have the same goal. The other is that maybe there is some level of, like, attraction between them, and that's somehow going to play out longer term. My gut tells me they're not going to go the romantic direction at any point.
I don't think so either. That's not my vibe from them.
Well, there's not very many shows that will give you a platonic relationship between the opposite sexes that get to function properly without turning into actual sex.
Yeah.
So that would be nice, and I think they've done that so well through 2 seasons. It would be a shame to muck it up longer term. Plus, when they introduced the potential Marcus and Sydney romantic thing, I was like, okay, good. We've got ourselves on a little bit of a track here for Sydney. They have so many characters, and we've only flushed out like 2 through 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, we get little moments, right? For like Tina
get the Marcus episode. We get a really nice Tina moment when she gets the sous chef job.
Yeah.
I loved it when Ibra gets brought back into the fold because they are going to keep running sandwiches at a little drive-through. He's the perfect guy to run that. Culinary school didn't work out. You can't always teach an old dog new tricks.
Well, he didn't want to learn the new tricks.
He didn't want to learn them.
He was too scared.
He was, yeah.
That was a relatable moment
and
too,
it was,
though.
But yes, it was really, again, another really nice, heartfelt moment that kind of like draws you in, makes it relatable. But it was nice to see him get brought back for the, for the side hustle there on the.
They always tell you,
slanging Sammys.
An old dog, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They never tell you why. This told you why.
Yeah.
You've been living a certain way for so long. A new challenge can be terrifying. It's like, what if I can't do it?
Big shouts to Matty Matheson as Fack. His role was definitely a higher profile this season, and I thought he was really funny and really good.
My favorite character in the show that's not Carmy.
Yeah.
Fack. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Follow Matty Matheson on Instagram now. Love that guy. A chef in real life who I think probably brings a lot of know-how to the show's set.
Yeah, he does. I think Christopher Storer is the showrunner, and then his sister, whose name I believe is Jessica Storer, is like the food production person on this show. She's like the co-showrunner, but is running the food side of the show.
Yeah.
And then Matty Matheson, I think, has a lot of input on that as well. And it's just another great filter to be like, is this what it would look like? Does this look right? Are we saying the right words? I still don't know what an all day is. When they're at the when they're at the podium and they say they need something all day, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I learned hands last night during the finale. I finally mustered up the courage to ask my wife. I was like, "Why are they yelling hands?"
That means they need somebody to come take the plates and run them outside, right?
Yeah.
Run them out to
But that took me 20 episodes.
I gotta look. We need a glossary. I gotta look up a glossary of that.
I don't want to do that. I want to learn it from the screen.
I do know what 86ing something is.
Canceling it.
Canceling
it's dead.
it.
It's gone.
It's dead. Yep.
Meth guy out.
guy
86th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. We covered Richie. We covered Sid, and her dad. We talked about Marcus a little bit. He's in a bad situation with his mom there at the end.
Yeah, it looks like she probably passed away.
Probably passed. That's unfortunate for him. Who else?
I did like the way that was handled, though, rather than do a whole scene where it's like he finds out. Now we just know going into season 3, he lost his mom.
Yep. Ibra and Tina are two vets. They've found their spots. Yeah.
Everybody's good. So let's talk briefly. Season 3 predictions.
Fack and Richie are wearing suits now. They wear suits now.
Dude, and they work. They really have real jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Fack's not just the handyman who has to fix everything as it breaks.
Yeah.
I loved that. The restaurant sucking all these people in. Like, Bear's sister now works there. Fack now really works there.
Yeah, Shug is definitely GMing, general managing, I think.
Who is Uncle Jimmy married to?
Nobody knows.
Is Uncle Jimmy not married to Cousin's ex-wife?
No.
Okay. Okay. I started to get a little confused at the end of season 2. I was like,
that would be pretty fucked up.
Wait, that's where I was like, I was like, I knew this Uncle Jimmy guy was a fucking problem. But okay, well, I'll suss that out later. It's not important. So what do you think we do for season 3? Obviously, season 2's finale, like we said, Friends and Family Night, and goes well without Carmi.
Yeah, I think season 3 is growing pains of having a new restaurant. I think we're going to dive into our open tables and our resis. You got to keep those tables booked.
Oh, that's fun. I like that.
I think that we'll probably they kind of teased bringing in some new chefs, some new characters. I feel like maybe a fresh face.
Sure.
Is on deck.
We got space now. Meth Guy's
right.
86.
To come into the kitchen. I think the Marcus and Sydney thing will be developed further, whatever is going on there. My biggest question is whether they bring is it Molly? What was her character? Molly Gordon? What was her character's name?
Claire.
That's my biggest question.
Will she come back?
Is she going to be back in the mix as is he going to try to fix that, or is that kind of the end of her arc until ... they decide not to bring her back at some point?
One thing you and I didn't touch on is the relationship between Carmi and cousin Richie at the end of season 2.
Yeah.
Now, we exit season 2, well, really season 2 builds them back to a place where you're like, wow, these guys are crushing together. They're both growing. They're both learning.
Yes.
They're both exceeding the heights of where they've been before. And then by the end of the finale, you're like, and they fucking hate each other again and everything's falling completely apart. Like the things they say to each other through that fridge door are going to be difficult to undo. So we go here. My point is, we exit season 2 having launched the restaurant successfully to some degree, at least, right?
Yeah.
But we did not solve the real issues between Carmi and Richie. They're still there. They're going to need to be. That's where the therapy hopefully comes in at some point. But
Yeah. I'm sure we start on a down note for them, but you have to imagine, given all we've seen, given fishes, given forks, how many times do you think they've had a blowout like that?
Right. It's almost just part of the way they operate.
Dozen? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's more my read on it is that's it's a bad one. Maybe it's top 5, but like they can recover from it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do. You're probably right. We roll into season 3 with them not being in a good spot, and then we have to get back. But yeah, I think one of the obvious focuses will need to be like, now you need to get this man, Uncle Jimmy, his money. He's going to need to be paid back. So some of this is going to be the schedule of when he collects.
And I think there will be, and then obviously I think Carmi and Sid is like one of the most important relationships on the show. And it's like, how are they? We still don't know what their arrangement is. Like, is she getting the respect she deserves? Is this more than a handshake deal? Is she cut into profits? Like, how is that all?
There's a lot of partners here, man.
Yes. Like, how is that working? Is she
Shogun's part of this thing?
Is she getting what she needs from this?
Right.
So,
Carmon's part of it. Shogun's part of it. Jimmy now is essentially owns everything if they don't pull it off. It's going to be chaos. I don't know. Obviously, the strike, the ongoing writers and now acting strike is also going to impact when this thing gets done. When I went to look back and see when season 1 came out, I was surprised it was 2022. I was like, oh, wow, maybe we crank one of these out every year. That'd be sick.
Yeah.
But now we're going to have to wait and see. That being said, when it does air, season 3, we will absolutely tackle it episode by episode on this podcast. I think now that I've gotten through season 2, I can confidently say there is enough to talk about every week where we could do a full 45 minutes to an hour on each episode of The Bear, even if they're only 30-minute episodes, because they pack this shit in, man.
They do.
Like, it's like they took, it's like, who's the dude who wrote West Wing, who did the Social Network?
Yes.
That dude who's known for writing like the snappiest, Aaron Sorkin, the most like cocaine-fueled, snappy dialogue. It's like they took Sorkin's pace and they were like, now let's ratchet this up a bit and throw in the alarms and the constant screaming and see what happens. So I think enough unfolds in every episode for us to discuss it. So when season 3 of The Bear does drop, we will be covering it episode by episode right here, and I'm really looking forward to that. But that's all we have time for today. So if you want more Bear talk, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Thursday of this week, Barrett and I will be taking hotline calls from the Clam fam, supporting us there on Patreon, answering questions, talking about and responding to their takes. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, where again, when you sign up, you immediately gain access to our entire backlog, including all the things I said at the top of today's show. We'd really appreciate it if you would continue supporting our sponsors by using the dedicated URLs and codes that are below this episode in the description right there for you. Today we had Bird Dogs, birddogs.com/dragon, code DRAGON for that free hat with your order, and factormeals.com/OCC50 to get 50% off your first box of Factor. It's incredible. I've been eating it for months now. If you're an F1 fan, check out Bolin Media's premier F1 programming at Formula Bone on all the social medias, youtube.com/@FormulaBone, where J-Bone, Jared Borslow, the host, has accumulated over 100,000 YouTube subscribers. For more from me, the Ross Bolin podcast, wherever you get OCC. And for more from Mr. Barrett Dudley, follow at Barrett Dudley, Barrett Dudley on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, what have you. I'm at WR Bolin on all of the aforementioned. Go to bolinmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some OCC merch. No bear-inspired merch yet. I'll see what I can come up with. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Remember, it's a love story. Baby, just say yes.